Hey Lamau, I'm Alex Shane. This right here is a UFO, the only confirmed photograph of a UAP, or Unidentified Anomalous Phenomenon.
Now, thousands of UFO photos have been taken over the years, but this specific shot, captured by the Apollo 17 mission in 1972 over the lunar surface, remains the only physical object of an unexplained nature ever recorded and officially recognized by a U.S. government commission.
We only know about this because of declassified FBI materials regarding UFO sightings. But what else is hidden in those files?
Take this photo, for example, or this video. And of course, there's the mountain of paperwork, newspaper clippings spanning over half a century, interoffice memos, official reports, photographs, and witness testimonies.
But there's a catch. Most of these materials have been declassified for decades, and many hit the media cycle a long time ago.
I get it. A lot of people are disappointed that these releases don't feature clear photos of little green men, wreckage from the Roswell crash, or detailed accounts of alien abductions. But does that actually matter?
No. And here's why.
Serious investigators read between the lines and study the facts meticulously. The real value of these released materials is that they give us access to the primary source. This isn't just some guy named John saying his grandpa saw something his neighbor told him about. This is real documentary evidence, on paper, printed or handwritten in black and white. Sometimes the very texture of the paper is more important than what's actually written on it.
I've personally spent a massive amount of time digging through this. I've analyzed every single page to pick out the strangest, verified, and still unexplained phenomena to share with you. I'm also going to tell you where to look for the actually secret information and why we aren't allowed to see it. Subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and let's dive in.
Why is that 1972 Apollo 17 photo such a smoking gun? Look closely. It shows a wide panoramic view of the lunar surface. In the upper right corner, inside the yellow zoom box, you can see three bright points forming a perfect equilateral triangle. This is a very famous photo. It's been shown 1,000,000 times. But here, in the official description, the US government provides a clarification. This is not a film defect. It is a physical object. How is that possible? Previously, they claimed this triangle over the moon was just a lens flare in the Hasselblad camera or specks of paint. But now, however, they've officially debunked those theories. The government commission refers to what is depicted as a physical object. The next photo was taken by the Apollo 12 mission in 1969 on the moon's surface. You can see the vast lunar horizon, but right here, in the zoom box, is a vertical, segmented object that changes color and luminosity. It looks like a long spine or a glowing rod. According to the astronaut's description, the object is hovering right above the horizon. Unlike other dots, this object has a complex mechanical structure and a blue tint that is anomalous for space. And to this day, it remains unexplained.
But let's turn to the documents. The dusty folders and thousands of pages of barely legible handwriting. The first of the strangest cases is the Socorro Incident.
This happened on April 24, 1964 in New Mexico. Police officer Lonnie Zamora was doing routine work, chasing a speeder. Right at that moment, he heard a roar and saw an egg-shaped object in a gully in the distance. According to the officer, he spotted two figures in white coveralls near the unknown craft. When they noticed him, they hurried inside the craft, and the metal egg emitted a deafening sound, blasted blue flames, and took off vertically.
When you study the documents for this event, the first thing that jumps out at you is the sheer redundancy of the paperwork.
Documents are repeated and copied over and over, which is a telltale sign that the case was given high priority within the first 24 hours. On pages 13 and 14, you can see handwritten sketches of the object's emblem and shape. This is a method of preserving evidence when no physical photo exists, meant to lock in facts before memory fades. Tell me, can you remember the exact details of your first day of school? Memory is selective. You never know what it will keep and what it will bury so deep you'll never find it. Take note of page 2, where Agent Burns describes Zamora as well regarded as a sober, industrious, and conscientious officer, and not given to fantasy. This means the FBI conducted a background check on the officer before even recording his testimony. The phrase, "not given to fantasy," is a marker for the reader. We tried to find signs of lying, insanity, or substance abuse in his history, but he's squeaky clean.
This episode is one of the few with physical evidence, which makes it vital. Pages 3 and 5 describe 4 indentations in the ground.
They found 3 burnt areas of grass inside the 4 indentations. This suggests that either the legs of the craft were heated to extreme temperatures or energy was being transferred through the landing gear. This contradicts the logic of a standard rocket engine. On page 12, Zamora describes the sounds he heard before the craft took off. 2 or 3 loud thumps, like someone possibly hammering or shutting a door or doors hard. This is a fascinating detail. In the pop culture of the time, saucers were described as magical and silent. Zamora, however, describes crude mechanics. The presence of doors and metal hitting metal suggests this was a physical and perhaps technically imperfect machine. Pages 13 and 14 record a red insignia on the side of the object. Zamora describes it as a red arrow or a jagged line inside a semicircle. Later, the media often confused or interpreted this as an alien symbol, but the FBI simply recorded it dryly. On page 16, Agent Burns described Zamora's state when backup arrived. Zamora was white, very pale, and sweating, even though it wasn't hot. This indicates the witness was in severe shock. An experienced cop used to shootouts and high-speed chases isn't going to be terrified by a helicopter or a college prank.
The most interesting thing here isn't little green men. The ones Zamora saw briefly were wearing white, but the combination of high technology and crude mechanics.
Obviously, the object was quite heavy, leaving deep dents in the ground. It slammed doors, the metallic thump. Its supports were a source of heat, burns inside the tracks, and the FBI confirmed that Zamora was a man of exceptional reputation. So what's the bottom line? This document confirms real physical contact with an unknown technical device that belonged to neither civilians nor, at that time, any known U.S. military branch. The FBI was clearly baffled, as seen by the constant duplication of reports. They were double-checking everything, desperate for a lead. We can't claim it was a UAP in the modern sense of interdimensional, but it was definitely a physical object with mass and technology far ahead of its time. The strangest part of Zamora's testimony is the metal hitting metal and slamming doors. If this were a super civilization capable of interstellar travel, you'd expect silent operation, anti-gravity, or teleportation. But Zamora heard mechanical sounds, like heavy hydraulic actuators or hatches. It sounds more like a secret prototype than an alien ship. The object looked and sounded like an experimental craft in the testing phase. It was noisy, it smoked, and it had landing gear that seemed to barely support its weight. Furthermore, Zamora doesn't describe grays with huge eyes, but short humans or large children in white coveralls. In 1964, the U.S. was actively testing astronaut rescue systems and small lunar flight vehicles, LRPVs. White coveralls were the standard uniform for NASA techs and pilots of that era.
But here is the but. No known aircraft of that time could take off vertically, without a traditional engine roar, and vanish over a mountain in seconds.
The Socorro event is a human encounter with impossible hardware. It's highly unlikely to be a hoax. Zamora didn't make a dime off this. He was terrified, and physical evidence remained. Most likely, it was either a top-secret unmanned or small-scale craft where the test went wrong, or it was an actual extraterrestrial probe that physically mimicked Earth technology of the time, logos, supports, but missed the finer details.
Whatever it was, among all the paperwork in the declassified files, This case deserves your full attention.
The next case worth noting happened far outside the US. Perhaps that's why we have such detailed info on it. On January 8, 1981, a resident of Trans-en-Provence, France, watched a lead-gray lenticular metal craft land in his garden. More specifically, the witness described it as two inverted saucers joined together. The most interesting part of the document is on page 25, section 4.3, and continues onto page 26, where the biochemical analyses are described. From this document, we learn something previously unknown: the surgical precision of the maneuver, page 36. Section 7.6.4 mentions a detail rarely discussed. The object landed and took off near an 8-foot-high wall. This is a significant technical nuance. Any Earth-based craft, like a helicopter or drone from 40 years ago that was heavy enough to leave deep tracks in the soil, would have created a massive turbulent downdraft. That airflow would have either damaged the wall or reflected off it and destabilized the craft. However, the witness and experts from GPAN, a unit within CNES, the French equivalent of NASA, emphasized the object was absolutely silent and caused zero air movement. There's also a mention of heavy metal on page 26. The document explicitly calls it a case of an unidentified heavy metal object.
Reading between the lines, the experts don't use vague terms like energy ball.
They officially recognized that this was a physical metal body of immense weight, as it left mechanical traces and prints in the shape of a crown. And we have to mention the plant analysis, which showed changes in chlorophyll and amino acids that decreased as you moved away from the center of the site. We are seeing a perfect example of the inverse square law for radiation. This proves the energy source was at a specific point on the ground, not an atmospheric phenomenon. Furthermore, the document notes these effects completely disappeared 2 years later. This wasn't a genetic mutation, it was a functional injury to the cells caused by powerful microwave radiation.
And the most important part, who signed off on these conclusions?
A group of experts consisting of Air Force generals, radar specialists, and biochemists. The list of participants on page 11 is impressive. Admirals, weapons engineers, police, they all officially signed off on their inability to explain it. The conclusion states it was a UAP-D, Category D, the most mysterious cases. For the military, this means a maximum level threat. The object violated airspace, landed near a residence, demonstrated an unknown energy type, and vanished without a trace. So far, this is the only case where science caught a UFO red-handed, not through a camera lens, but through the alteration of amino acids in common grass, and the declassified documents confirm this completely. If the Socorro case is the triumph of police protocol, then Trans-en-Provence is the expert verdict. In almost all UAP sightings, you usually have one piece of the puzzle, but lack objective confirmation.
Here, I should clarify, we aren't claiming these are aliens. We are claiming that according to FBI and Air Force documents, physical objects that ignore the laws of physics have been recorded in our skies for decades, and the best minds in intelligence have officially admitted they cannot explain their nature.
The next mystery I want to talk about is the Leveland case. On November 2, 1957, near Leveland, Texas, over 10 witnesses, including locals, travelers, and even police officers in different locations, saw a massive, glowing, egg-shaped object land on the road. During the encounter, several witnesses' cars' engines stalled and their lights failed. As soon as the unidentified object took off, the cars started back up on their own. The most fascinating part of this incident is the simultaneous, identical testimony from multiple people who had no way of communicating with each other. Another key point you notice if you read the testimonies carefully is the field that disabled the engines and lights had physical boundaries. Witness James Long, testimony on page 15, was 200 feet from the object. His engine stalled and his lights went out. Sheriff Weir Clem, page 14, observed the object from 200 yards, 3 times further than James Long. His car kept running and his lights stayed on. Looking closely at these details, we can say with certainty that we're dealing with a clearly defined dome of electromagnetic interference. To suppress an ignition system in 1957, back when electronics were analog and extremely simple, would require a colossal field strength. The fact that the effect vanished at 600 feet allows physicists to calculate the approximate power of the emitter.
But there's a seeming contradiction in the documents that is actually the key to the technology.
Sheriff Weir Clem stated the object moved silently. Witness Pedro Saucedo described the sound as a deafening roar of thunder, like something exploded. This sounds like a description of a sonic boom. An object can hover silently, but with instantaneous acceleration, it pushes the air, creating a shock wave. The fact that the sheriff, further away, didn't hear it, while Saucedo, in the impact zone, heard thunder, tells us the vector of the object's movement. It accelerated away from the sheriff. See, even aliens are afraid of the cops. Just kidding. The report states that officials from Reese Air Force Base immediately went to the scene to investigate a possible car crash. But here's the nuance. The military didn't believe in saucers. They were looking for specific hardware that crashed. When they found no debris, no crash site, but recorded scorched spots where the object sat on the road, page 15, the case was moved to anomalous status.
As we can see, the Leveland case is the most massive and credible evidence of an electromagnetic suppression zone around a UFO.
The fact that the witnesses were unrelated, one from Waco, one local, and one sheriff, yet all described the identical process: approach, tech failure, glow, departure, tech recovery, rules out mass hysteria. Here we see a classic example of bureaucratic football. FBI agents simply recorded the facts and forwarded them to Project Blue Book, an Air Force project. That's why in the FBI archives we only see the leftovers, newspaper clippings and brief summaries like on pages 15 and 16. So where are the original papers? All the detailed witness interrogations, the technical specs of the cars, and the radiation measurements are in the U.S. Air Force's archives. In our documents, on page 30, there's an article titled "Air Force Hushes Up Saucer Probe." A detailed investigation of Leveland was conducted by officers from Reese Air Force Base. They collected soil samples, but the results were classified as military intelligence, which FBI agents don't always have access to.
And this brings us to the big question. Why is there so little raw or new, previously unpublished info in these declassified materials? Where is the stuff that hasn't been published?
The answer is this. The information is scattered across a massive number of agencies and even corporations that will never voluntarily disclose it. Why is it easier for the FBI to declassify documents? Because they're civilian employees, and 90% of their files are just retellings of what civilians said. The Air Force is a different story. Their data is technical. We're talking radar frequencies, MX20/25 thermal imager specs like in the Iraq case, and target tracking algorithms. If the Air Force declassifies the full Leveland investigation, they inevitably reveal the sensitivity limits of their air defense systems. For the military, that's a non-starter. They'd rather admit to aliens than show an enemy the blind spots in their radar. In our documents, there's a document stating the FBI stopped investigating UFOs way back in 1947, before the Roswell incident. Today, the FBI is essentially an archivist. They just store what's sent to them, and under the FOIA, they're obligated to release it if no agents' names are compromised. For the Air Force, UFOs are intelligence. In military law, intelligence data has an indefinite classification period if it concerns unidentified threats. Until the Air Force officially labels an object as ours or natural, it stays in the threat folder, which is not subject to full disclosure. The Air Force might not be hiding aliens. They might be hiding their own inability to protect the skies from objects that move faster than their best jets. To declassify that data is to admit vulnerability.
But there are even more secretive organizations that might hold even more info.
The U.S. Navy. Declassified documents contain a large amount of data coming from carrier-based aircraft and ships in the Gulf of Aden and the Persian Gulf, Then there's the Department of Energy, DOE. Many declassified files mention objects over Oak Ridge and other nuclear sites. The DOE guards nuclear labs. They have their own independent security service and surveillance systems. There's a theory that the DOE has much more data on UFO physics than the Air Force, because UFOs show an anomalous interest specifically in atomic energy. The documents also contain NASA data. They see objects outside the atmosphere. However, NASA is a civilian agency, and by protocol, they often have to hand sensitive data over to the Department of Defense, after which it vanishes from the public eye. The NSA and the NRO are also involved. The NSA handles signals intelligence, SIGINT. Released files mention using SIGINT when recording UAPs. If an object emits a signal, the NSA records it. The National Reconnaissance Office, NRO, manages spy satellites. If a UFO enters the atmosphere, early warning missile satellites see it first. The Cometa report explicitly mentions CIA involvement in monitoring ufological movements and creating the Robertson Panel. The CIA isn't studying the hardware of UFOs, they study the psychological aspect, how to use the UFO topic for disinformation against adversaries.
And finally, the real vaults of secret information that aren't subject to the same laws: private corporations.
Declassified documents mention that UFO info is classified above top secret. In the US, these are called SAPs, Special Access Programs. The government often hands sensitive objects like suspected wreckage or data on unknown materials to private companies like Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, or Raytheon. And here's the kicker. The Freedom of Information Act, FOIA, which opened up the FBI documents, does not apply to private companies. They can simply state, "This is our intellectual property and a trade secret." Even the US Congress has a hard time looking into private corporate safes. And then there are the unacknowledged SAPs, Pentagon programs whose very existence is officially denied.
When we look for the truth about UFOs in the FBI archives, we're looking at the storefront window. The real secrets are hidden where the hand of declassification law cannot reach, in private corporations and the depths of the Department of Energy. But does that mean we should give up? No, if only because space is much more interesting than it seems. I appreciate you spending this time with me, and I hope to see you again soon.